Hello everyone, this is Adam Anderson, Product Trainer at Maple Systems. Welcome back to our EBPro training series. In the last video we showed you how to create new recipes for batch operations in EBPro, how to define individual records for your recipes, and how to select those records from the HMI. Now we'll discuss how to display individual item values, how to modify and add records from the HMI, and then finally how to batch send or transfer these recipe records to your PLC using data transfers. First, depending on the item whose value you wish to display from a recipe record, you could use a numeric display or an ASCII display accordingly. In our dimensions recipe, which I set up in the last video, I've now added a new item called name, which is a Unicode type string that is 5 characters long. Since I've made that modification, I also added the name field and a second record. And in that second record, we have a different value in the Z column. And we can see that reflected in the recipe view object here. Now if we go to run the offline simulation again, we'll be able to select from either one of those records for the dimension recipe. We have prod 1 and prod 2 there. Now what if I want to display just one of these values at a time? Well, we can use ASCII objects or numeric display objects for that. So let's look at that now. From the Object tab, click on ASCII and select Unicode. Choose Recipe from the address drop-down, and then you can choose your recipe and select Name. It will know how long the string needs to be based on how you set it up in the database. Then you can click OK and add this to your window. Okay, now we'll also add a numeric display and show the recipe record Z value. So again, choose Recipe, select the dimensions recipe and Z as the item. And then we can add this to our window too. And let's run the offline simulation again. Now you'll see that since I have the first record selected, the string that I see is prod 1 for name, and the Z value is 3.3. If I change over to the next record, the name here and the Z value update accordingly. With this in mind, now we can talk about how you can modify existing recipes and save these changes to the recipe database, which is retained on the HMI even through power cycles. I'll go ahead and remove these now. And what I've added here are a command register. So for your recipe, for example, for the paint recipe, there is a command register where you can enter in a number as a command value and then add, update, delete records or delete all records from your recipe database. The result of these commands is written to the result register. So again, we would choose the recipe and select result if we wanted to display these. This one, we won't allow input, but the command register we will. And how do you know which commands are which? We'll add this helpful text here for you as a hint. And to avoid having to enter in the number directly into the command register, we'll also add some set word objects. Basically what we need to do, if we enter a 1 into the command register, it will add a new recipe record. And the values that it will use for this record will be taken directly from these numeric inputs and from this ASCII input here. So we've added set word objects now for this. So if we write a 1 into the recipe command register, it will add. And if we write a 2, it will update. Let's try it out. First, let's look at the custom recipe, which I left as a placeholder. We could change this and enter in some new values here. And we're going to give this a name. We'll call this gray sky new paint color. And we're going to add this new record now. Now we have this new record that's been saved to the recipe database on the HMI, and it will remain here even when we reboot the HMI. Now if we want to make a modification, we can do that easily. Just simply enter in the new values as you would with anything else, numeric or ASCII, and then click Update Record. Now we can see those new values are reflected here in the recipe view object, and when we select that record, we see those values show up in the numeric and ASCII displays. Now we'll look at deleting the selected record. Again, we're adding set word objects here. To delete the selected record, we write a value of 3 into the command register. And to delete all records, we write a value of 4. Now for this one, because we want to be careful with deleting all of the existing recipes on the HMI, we can require a confirmation by the operator. Are you sure you want to do this? We could also enable security if you wanted to. For example, you could use enhanced security and use administrator class restriction for this, so that only an administrator could delete all the recipe records from the HMI. Now let's do our offline simulation again. And we're going to go ahead and delete the gray sky record. Okay, so we see that disappears right away from the recipe view object. Finally, let's talk about how we can send these different records or jobs in a batch format to the PLC. We do that with the data transfer object. To create a data transfer object, go to the Object tab and select Data Transfer. Per page is what we'll use, as this allows for a touch trigger or a push button style. First, we need to set the source address. We're first going to choose the paint recipe, and we'll start with the first item or the first field from this recipe, whose value we want to send. Name, if we recall, is a 12-word string. So if we select name, so if we wanted to send just the name to our PLC, we could do that. For example, sending to the Modbus PLC, we'd send 12 words into a starting register, and it would occupy the subsequent registers. If instead we want to send all of the data, name, and the R, G, and B values, we would simply change the number of words accordingly. So for us, it would be 15 registers or 15 words that we need to send. Once we've set the source and destination and the number of words, then you can choose a shape and a label. For example, send to PLC. And you can add that to your screen and perform that action that way. If you wanted to send the PLC parameters, copy from the PLC registers all of the values for our record or for our batch operation, we can do the same and just reverse the direction. Here's an example. We can go from, for example, the Modbus PLC, starting at the 4x1 address, copy everything from there, 15 words worth of data, into the recipe record on the HMI. I would encourage you to download this sample project so that you can test this out yourself, as well as our other sample projects relating to recipes. To round out this training series, following this video, we'll cover basic and enhanced security for your HMI, and also discuss alarms and events, email and SMS notifications, and how to back up your event logs. Stay tuned for the next episode.